Knowledge Adventures class, New Advances in Alzheimer's Treatment. I'm one of the facilitators. My name is Carol Harcade. Marie Bonamino is our Zoom host, and I'll introduce our instructors in just a moment. Okay. All right, let me tell you a little bit about NKA, or New Knowledge Adventures. NKA is a volunteer-driven program that was established in the Treasure Valley in 2015. And it's modeled after a very successful NKA program that was begun in Pocatello prior to that. We're very, very grateful for our volunteer instructors and all of our volunteer committee members who help this wonderful lifelong learning opportunity take place. A few ground rules before we begin. Participants can leave the class at any time, and you'll do that by going to the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and there's a leave button. Microphones will be muted, so if you would like to ask a question during the presentation, you'll use the chat box. And again, for those of you who are new to Zoom, to go to the chat box, you'll take your cursor to the bottom of the screen. You'll see a little window that says chat. Click on it. It opens a window to type in your question. And we will hold all the questions until the end of the presentation. You will be getting handouts from the presentation, but they will be sent out a little bit later today to you via email. For that reason, Sheena Smith will need to have your zip code. So if you will notice in your chat box, there is a message from Sheena to everyone that asks you to send her your zip code, and you want to send your zip code just to Sheena. So in the chat box, again, there will be a little blue area, and you can click on it to send. It'll have a pull down menu of all the names, and just click on Sheena's name to send the zip code to her. Now, when you ask questions, though, you'll need to click on everyone so that I can read questions at the end. Our presenters we have two presenters today. Their names are, I'm losing too many papers. Their names are K Coffin and Caitlin Bertholdt. I'm going to let Kelly and Caitlin introduce themselves, and then we'll get started. All right, let's go, everyone.
Yes, hello, everyone. So grateful to be with you today. Thanks very much for inviting us to present on the advances in research and treatments that are available. My name is Caitlin Bertholdt, and I am a regional coordinator with the Alzheimer's Association. And I work in Central Oregon, actually in Bend, and have been with the association for 4 years. So I will pass it over to Kelly to introduce herself, and then we'll get started with our presentations.
Okay, thank you, Carol, Caitlin, the rest of our hosts. Thank you everyone for joining. Super excited to be here. My name is Kelly K Coffin, as Carol said, and I am actually a volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association. I've been volunteering for 2 years now. I lost both my maternal grandmother back in the 90s and my mom just 2 years ago to Alzheimer's. So I'm super passionate about this cause. And in addition to being a community educator, I also do a lot of advocacy work for the association. And I'm on the walk committee, the Portland Walk Committee, and I currently reside in Beaverton. But thanks to the great technology that we have, we can present from anywhere these days. So thank you for having us.
All right, if there aren't any other announcements, I'll go ahead and share my screen and get started. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm Caitlin Bertholdt, Regional Coordinator with the Alzheimer's Association, Oregon and Southwest Washington chapter. I also serve as a research champion, in which I have the opportunity to provide presentations to all the communities we serve about the association's role in research. I'm not a scientist. However, after losing both of my grandmothers to Alzheimer's and seeing the huge impact that this disease has on individuals that have been diagnosed and their family members. I'm incredibly passionate about research and have hope for a future when this devastating disease no longer exists. The Alzheimer's Association is relentless in its work to enhance care and support for people living with the disease. The association seeks to leverage research to eradicate Alzheimer's and all other dementia. Everything we do, from care and support to advocacy and research, is evidence-based, meaning it's rooted in the most up-to-date research in the field. We are recognized by the global scientific community for our unwavering focus on helping people living with dementia and their families every day, and our ability to fund the best science around the world. The Alzheimer's Association is a global research force. At any given moment, researchers are working around the clock all over the world to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia. Today, we'll dive into an overview of the landscape of Alzheimer's and dementia research. We'll go over why early detection and diagnosis are important, as well as discuss biomarkers and some of the ways they are used in dementia research. We'll touch on the diversity and therapeutic approaches currently under investigation and advances in clinical trials, and we'll share ways that you can make a difference. To begin, let's define the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia. We get this question a lot. Are Alzheimer's and dementia the same? So we're just going to touch on this very briefly. Dementia is a syndrome or a collection of symptoms. It is what the person experiences, not what causes the experience. Alzheimer's is a disease or the biological cause of the dementia. We normally think of cognition as memory, but it also includes thinking, judgment, planning, and orientation to time and place. Dementia can also include behavioral and psychological symptoms such as agitation, aggression, sleep disturbances, hallucinations and delusions, and anxiety. So as you can see on this slide, dementia is an umbrella term, much like cancer. The term describes a collection of diseases that may share some common features and characteristics. There are many causes of dementia, but Alzheimer's disease is the most common form. Other causes of dementia are vascular problems, such as vascular dementia, anything that interferes with the body's ability to get blood, oxygen, and other nutrients to the brain will comprise its functioning. Lewy body diseases, including dementia with Lewy bodies, and Parkinson's disease dementia, and frontotemporal dementia. There are other less common causes of dementia, but these are the most prevalent. The Alzheimer's Association provides care and support for and research into all causes of dementia, not just Alzheimer's. So if you or someone you know is dealing with any type of dementia, we're here to help. Each year, the Alzheimer's Association releases the Facts and Figures report, which illustrates the heavy burden of Alzheimer's on individuals, family, and society. More than 6 million American seniors 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's today, and this number is expected to more than double to 12.7 million by 2050. 1 in 3 seniors dies with Alzheimer's or another dementia. More than 80% of Americans know little or are not familiar with mild cognitive impairment, which can be an early stage of Alzheimer's. Between 2000 and 2019, the number of deaths from Alzheimer's disease had increased 145%, while deaths from the #1 cause of death, heart disease, decreased 7.3%. The disease also places a heavy burden on the healthcare system, with total payments for care at $321 billion, which is projected to rise to $1 trillion by 2050. Care partners are also heavily impacted. In 2021, more than 11 million Americans provided an estimated 16 billion hours of unpaid care, valued at $272 billion. And again, unpaid care, that does not include any paid care that's provided from in-home care or long-term care. Those are specifically family and friends that are providing that 16 billion hours of care. So these statistics are staggering and demonstrate the critical need for diverse research and advances quickly. Researchers now understand that cognitive impairment occurs across a continuum spanning many years. All of us will move through some phases of normal cognitive aging. It's a natural process causing some small changes to our cognition over time. What we're talking about here is an abnormal process driven by disease biology in the brain. We start off cognitively unimpaired, but as we age, some individuals will progress to stages of mild cognitive impairment, or MCI. MCI is an impairment that does not interfere with activities of daily living, but biological changes in the brain have started to occur. If individuals go on to develop dementia, they will progress through mild, moderate, and severe stages. Dementia is defined as impairment in 2 or more cognitive functions that interfere with activities of daily living. Now, MCI is a known risk factor for dementia, but not all individuals who develop MCI will go on to develop dementia. However, everyone who experiences dementia will have passed through a stage of MCI. This provides an opportunity for treatment and potential prevention. If we can prevent new cases of MCI, we may be able to prevent new cases of dementia. And it's worth noting that although the arrows on this continuum are of equal size, they're not equal in duration. The experience will also vary from individual to individual. So let's talk about specifically what's happening in the brain with Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's disease was named after Dr. Alois Alzheimer, a German neuropathologist who first described the disease in a landmark presentation about his patient, August Dieter, in 1906. 1906 was a time of scientific revolution in which better microscopes and brain tissue staining techniques were developed. Those advances allowed Dr. Alzheimer's to note 3 specific hallmark changes in the brain: a buildup of amyloid proteins in the forms of plaques around the outside of neurons, the formation of tau tangles inside of the neurons, and brain cell death or neurodegeneration that causes shrinkage or atrophy of the brain tissue and areas of the brain most important for memory, planning, and behavior. He proposed that these biological changes in the brain were related to the behavioral changes of the patient. Researchers today are still very focused on understanding what causes these biological changes in the brain and how to use this information to develop therapies and risk reduction strategies. So we don't fully know what causes Alzheimer's, but at any given moment, researchers all over the world are making discoveries that will help us one day answer this question. If you take one thing away from today, it should be this: that Alzheimer's is not normal aging. Yes, age is a primary risk factor, but it's also the primary risk factor for many types of cancer. And most people don't think of cancer as a normal part of aging. Similarly, Alzheimer's is a specific brain disease. And just like we've defeated many types of cancers, we can also defeat Alzheimer's. Almost everyone experiences something called normal age-related cognitive decline, where it's harder to remember names and faces, occasionally forgetting where you parked your car when you leave the store, or occasionally forgetting why you entered the room, and eventually being able to retrace your steps. All of these are typical and do not indicate that a person is on the way to developing Alzheimer's or another dementia. There are some risk factors that may not be in our control, and these are non-modifiable risk factors, including age, genes, family history, which is more than just genes. It includes shared environment and lifestyle experiences, race and ethnicity. In this regard, risk may involve biological and social determinants of health. But some risk factors can be controlled, and these are known as modifiable risk factors. This includes cardiovascular health, education, social and cognitive engagement, diet, exercise, and sleep. There are disparities in Alzheimer's disease prevalence and research. Almost 2/3 of Americans with Alzheimer's are women. We still don't understand the reason for this, but current research suggests there may be both biological and life experiences that can contribute to this disparity. There are racial and ethnic disparities in the prevalence of the disease too. Older Black Americans are 2 times as likely, and Hispanic Americans are 1.5 times as likely as older white Americans to have Alzheimer's and other dementias. This prevalence may be driven in these communities by underlying cardiovascular health conditions or factors related to social determinants of health. Historically, ethno-racial groups have been underrepresented in trials and studies. This highlights the need for more diversity in dementia research. Poor representation of ethno-racial groups in research means we don't get enough participation in these studies to ensure that results are generalizable to our diverse US population. We need to understand what drives dementia in all people. So this is a tremendously exciting time in research. With each research study and clinical trial, we learn something new every day. There are new discoveries aimed at detection, diagnosis, and treatments, bringing us closer to more effective options. There's a lot on the horizon and a lot to be optimistic about, generating more excitement and enthusiasm now than in any time in the history in the Alzheimer's research community. As the largest nonprofit funder of research, we can go across borders in search of answers to the health crisis that is Alzheimer's. We fund the best projects regardless of where they're happening. Today, the Alzheimer's Association has more than $300 million of grants in action, making possible more than 920 research projects in 45 different countries, spanning 6 out of 7 continents, except Antarctica. When it comes to research, we are attacking Alzheimer's from many fronts to know more about detection, prevention, early diagnosis, and treatment. We have worked intensely to create unprecedented momentum, raising the public discussion of Alzheimer's and dementia to the top of mind in the US. We have increased federal funding for Alzheimer's and dementia research at the NIH. Our advocacy recently helped secure $3.4 billion in federal funding for Alzheimer's and related dementia research. These research dollars from the NIH go to scientists in the field who are working diligently to understand the disease. As you can see, we've more than quadrupled dollars available to researchers around the country. These dollars are crucial for moving research forward. The increased investment allows for funding of new and innovative ideas and helps to grow a legion of new researchers dedicated to the fight against Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. One thing to take note of is that although over $3 billion is dedicated to Alzheimer's and dementia research, and we're incredibly proud of the advances that we have made in raising the public awareness and increase in funding, the total payments for care for Americans over the age of 65 is a staggering $321 billion, which you may recall from the facts and figures details. So we still have work to do. One reason for excitement is that researchers have tools today that they never had before, enabling them to ask and answer new kinds of questions. In fact, you may not know it, but we're living in a new scientific revolution, the biomarker revolution. A biomarker is simply something that we can measure in the body that tells us about a disease. So you may not be familiar with the word biomarker, but you're likely familiar with the concept. If you've ever taken a cholesterol test or a blood sugar test, those are biomarkers for heart disease risk and diabetes, respectively. For almost 100 years after Auguste's and Alois's time, there were no biomarkers for Alzheimer's disease. The only way to know who had Alzheimer's in their brain was to look at the brain tissue on autopsy, exactly the same way that Dr. Alzheimer did in 1906. But about 20 years ago, in 2001, the Alzheimer's Association funded Dr. Bill Klunk at the University of Pittsburgh to develop something called amyloid PET imaging. Amyloid PET is a way for us to see inside the brain to investigate the presence of one of the hallmarks of Alzheimer's, the amyloid beta plaque. Amyloid PET was FDA approved for clinical use in 2012, and this technology is now used to aid in Alzheimer's diagnosis and in almost every single clinical trial for drugs that target amyloid to make sure the right people are being enrolled into the study. Now we can see who has brain changes associated with Alzheimer's during life and before symptoms begin. In 2020, the FDA approved another imaging agent called tauvid for clinical use that helps to eliminate the hallmark tau tangles in the brain. Illuminate, sorry if I said eliminate. Illuminate the hallmark tau tangles in the brain. This tool can now be used to aid in the diagnosis of Alzheimer's. In fact, we can now see all 3 hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease in the living brain. MRI imaging is a tool that can be used to look at the changes in the brain structure and volume that demonstrate the neurodegeneration or nerve cell death. However, these brain scans can be expensive and hard to get, so scientists continue to research new kinds of biomarkers that will be lower cost not invasive, and reliable markers of disease. Tools are being developed to support measurements of factors in cerebral spinal fluid, blood, eye test, and even saliva. Biomarkers are really helping us to modernize the diagnosis. We used to only diagnose individuals at the later stage of the disease once they were already showing signs of cognitive decline. This was primarily done based on medical history and cognitive testing. But biomarkers have shifted the paradigm through brain imaging and biofluid analysis. We now know that the clinical symptoms of cognitive impairment may be due to changes that are occurring in our brains and bodies 10 to 20 years before symptoms appear. This offers an opportunity for potential prevention. We need to be able to identify who is at the most risk for developing impairment, cognitive impairment, and dementia, and who may be using these tools, and the ways we may be using these tools in the future to diagnose disease and start treatments and risk reduction strategies even earlier. In the future, though, treatment for Alzheimer's and other dementias may look a lot like treatments for heart disease today. It's likely to involve a combination of medications and lifestyle changes, both for risk reduction and treatment. So I'm not going to go too into this right now. I know that Kelly is going to be covering more about the FDA-approved therapies for Alzheimer's up next. I just wanted to highlight that progress has been made in available therapies, especially over the past couple of decades. So clinical trials are expensive to conduct and take a long time. The process for moving a drug from a laboratory into humans can be more than a decade. The good news is that there are currently more than 700 clinical trials happening as we speak, aimed at developing new drugs and devices to treat Alzheimer's and other dementia. There is a diverse array of approaches being tested today, and you can see here how trials move through the pipeline. Preclinical studies in laboratories establish a scientific basis for believing a drug is reasonably safe and may be effective. Phase 1 trials typically involve healthy volunteers and are relatively small in size, about 30 to 80 people in terms of participants needed. They also may be shorter in duration. These trials are aimed at better understanding the safety of an approach. Phase 2 trials typically involve healthy volunteers, but also individuals that may be living with the disease. These trials usually involve hundreds of volunteers and can take over a year to complete. Phase 2 trials are aimed at understanding the safety of an approach, but also start to address questions about whether a drug will have benefits for a particular disease. And Phase 3 trials typically involve only individuals living with the disease, involve thousands of volunteers, may be global in nature, and can sometimes take 1.5 to 2 years to complete. Phase 3 trials are the largest, most complicated trials in the pipeline and are designed to understand not only the safety, but also the clinical benefit of an approach. It's critical that potential treatments move through this research process because we need to know that through a well-designed, controlled clinical trial, that the data support both safety as well as benefits before it can be approved by the FDA for treatment. With all these trials going on, there's a constant need for diverse participants so we can understand how new approaches work in all populations. So we need to constantly fill the clinical trial pipeline with innovative strategies for treatment. We know today that Alzheimer's and other dementia are complex brain diseases, which will likely not be solved in a single drug or treatment approach. So it's critical that we not only conduct research with the help of diverse volunteers, but we also need to continue to diversify the treatment pipeline. One example of this is through our Part the Cloud translational research program. This program is designed to move innovative treatment approaches from lab through clinical trials and eventually into clinical practice. The association relies on many forms of generous philanthropic support to be able to accelerate research in many ways. So on this slide, you can see an example of some of the innovative approaches being tested today. We are no longer just looking at targets of the hallmarks of Alzheimer's in the brain, such as amyloid and tau. These strategies take into consideration other contributors too, such as the brain's immune system, energy systems, and blood vessels. I mentioned that researchers are interested in both drug treatments and lifestyle interventions. So let's talk about more what's happening in this area. One such intervention was explored in the Sprint Mind study. This study tested whether intensively treating blood pressure would decrease risk for developing cognitive impairment and dementia. They found that controlling blood pressure to 120 systolic, which is the top number of your blood pressure reading, decreases the risk for developing mild cognitive impairment and dementia. This is significant because it tells us there are things that you can do today to reduce your risk for developing mild cognitive impairment and maybe even dementia. What is good for the heart is good for the brain. Therefore, we have an immediate opportunity to be proactive about our cardiovascular health. This is an example of the modifiable risk factors mentioned earlier. Lifestyle interventions to modify risk of developing mild cognitive impairment and dementia are actively being studied. Some of the strongest research to date suggests controlling cardiovascular risk factors may be helpful in delaying cognitive decline. The SprintMind study we just talked about is only one of these examples. Other healthy factors that may slow down cognitive decline include cognitive and social stimulation, a healthy diet, or physical activity, which may also improve cardiovascular health. We need to continue to learn more about these approaches as an intervention strategy. So we have to conduct trials using these theories to demonstrate whether or not they will be effective. The big question we have to answer is, what would happen if we layer on additional components to a lifestyle intervention approach to reduce risk for cognitive decline? The Alzheimer's Association is conducting a landmark lifestyle intervention clinical trial in the United States called US Pointer. It's the first trial of its kind ever to be conducted in the US and builds off of a successful trial that was conducted in Finland called the Finger trial, which found that a multi-domain lifestyle intervention can decrease risk of cognitive decline in an elderly at-risk Finnish population. US Pointer will test whether lifestyle interventions encouraging physical exercise, a healthy diet, cognitive and social activities, and health monitoring can reduce risk of memory changes in older adults at risk for memory loss. There will be 2 lifestyle interventions compared, a self-guided and a structured group. The intervention trial will take place over 2 years and 2,000 participants across 5 geographically diverse clinical US cities. The study will recruit individuals between the ages of 60 to 79 who are not currently experiencing memory problems, but they must have a primary relative, such a mother, father, or sibling, who has a history of memory problems, and they must have room for improvement in terms of their lifestyle behaviors, such as their level of physical activity or incorporating a healthy diet. Over 1,300 participants have already been recruited, and more than 25% of current participants are from populations historically underrepresented in Alzheimer's and dementia research. Positive trial results from US Pointer would inform an accessible and sustainable community-based lifestyle program for risk reduction. Another important note about US Pointer is that the Alzheimer's Association is investing $35 million into this landmark clinical trial, and the NIA has funded an additional studies to look at the impact of sleep, neurovascular contributions, brain scans, and the microbiome, making this a nearly $100 million study. Pointer neuroimaging is going to use imaging to assess the changes in the brain as a result of these interventions. Pointer Z will add in sleep measurements to examine the effects of interventions on sleep disturbances linked to cognitive decline. Pointer microbiome will use fecal and blood samples to investigate the effects of diet and exercise on the association between the bacteria in the gut and Alzheimer's. And Pointer neurovascular will look at the effects of the interventions on blood vessel function and how these are linked to changes in cognition. Not only are we leading these exciting lifestyle intervention efforts in the US through the US Pointer study, but we bring the global efforts together through the Worldwide Fingers Network. We need to address risk factors in ways that make sense for people where they live and in a culturally competent way. For example, the way that people exercise and achieve healthy diet can vary from country to country and across different cultures. This network allows researchers across the globe to discuss study designs and find ways to harmonize the study findings for many lifestyle intervention trials. The US Pointer is the first of its kind in the US, and is based on the finger study from Finland, which was the first of its kind in the world. Now there are about 25 countries worldwide participating in similar efforts to see what the effects of healthy lifestyle might be on the brain health of their populations. So all of the countries that are in purple are currently planning or implementing a finger-like study, and all of the countries in orange are currently planning or negotiating a finger-like study. So every study helps scientists learn more about the disease they are trying to address. There's an urgent need for inclusion of individuals of underrepresented backgrounds in clinical trials so that new discoveries can benefit all. One of the biggest hurdles to finding a treatment for Alzheimer's disease and other dementias is getting a variety of people of diverse backgrounds enrolled, engaged, and retained in clinical trials. To find solutions that will work for all, we need everyone to be a part of this critical research. If you would like to be a part of the solution, you may consider volunteering to take part in a clinical trial. The association offers an easy way to find studies that might be the right fit for you or even someone you know. It's called TrialMatch. It's a free clinical trial matching service. It does not sign you up for a clinical trial, but rather connects you with clinical studies and provides an easy way to control how you search for studies. By answering a few questions, TrialMatch allows you to see a customized list. And if you see anything like, you can reach out to the study team directly for more information or to express interest. You can sign up for TrialMatch at alz.org/TrialMatch, or you can call our 24/7 helpline to be connected to a TrialMatch specialist who can support you through the process. All the science we have been discussing today boils down to an effort to change the trajectory of Alzheimer's disease and other dementia. We believe that if we can develop a treatment by 2025, that could be medicines or through lifestyle interventions or a combination, that delays the onset of Alzheimer's by just 5 years, then it's projected that the 12.7 million people expected to develop Alzheimer's by 2050 would not. This would have a huge impact for our families and help mitigate the looming public health crisis in our society today. So believe it or not, we've just scratched the surface of all the research and progress that's happening as we speak. To have more research news, viewpoints, and resources at your fingertips at any given moment, you can download the Science Hub app or learn more at alz.org/Science Hub. We also have a variety of resources available to you that you can check out if you'd like more information. You can visit our website, alz.org, or specifically alz.org/research to check out what's happening in the research realm and stay up to date. You can also call our 24/7 helpline at 800-272-3900, which is available anytime, day or night. You can ask questions relating to research, or if you have questions about Alzheimer's or other types of dementia or need emotional support, they're there at any moment that you need them. So I hope that you leave today knowing more about the Alzheimer's Association and our research mission. There are new tools and technologies that are being developed every day to detect, diagnose disease, and to better understand the brain. And there's more diversity in approaches to therapies than ever before. We truly believe that new research is leading to a future therapy that combines drugs and modifiable risk factors. And always know that there's hope in research. It will be the way we discover how to slow, stop, or prevent Alzheimer's and all other dementia. So I'm going to stop there and thank you so much. I will just pass it right on over to you, Kelly, to talk more about FDA-approved therapies.
Okay, thank you, Caitlin. Sorry, I was looking for the unmute button. So I'm going to go ahead and start my portion. Let me just share my screen. And okay, here we go. And then I just want to mention, I know that I saw some questions pop up in the chat. We will get to those. I'll go ahead and do my portion and then we will circle back to all the questions that you have. So thank you for your patience on that. Okay, so I'm going to talk mainly about aducanumab or Aduhelm. You may have heard it pronounced two different ways. And you may have heard in the news recently about this new treatment. So this program will provide you with the information about that and all treatments for Alzheimer's disease. So I'm going to kind of piggyback a little bit off of Caitlin's presentation. After attending today's presentation, you will be able to list FDA-approved treatments, explain the impact of aducanumab on amyloid plaques in the brain, its potential benefits and side effects, explain the pathways to access treatment, describe the resources available through the Alzheimer's Association. And some of this will be a little bit of a repeat, so just kind of bear with me. And so let's discuss, why is treatment so needed? Today, as Caitlin talked about, there are more than 6 million Americans aged 65 and older living with Alzheimer's dementia. Over 11 million Americans provide unpaid care for people with Alzheimer's or other dementias. On behalf of those impacted by Alzheimer's, the Alzheimer's Association welcomes and celebrates the FDA's accelerated approval of aducanumab. This is the first treatment approved for Alzheimer's disease since 2003, and the first to address the underlying biology of Alzheimer's disease. This accelerated approval could mean more time for individuals to actively participate in daily life, have sustained independence, and hold on to memories longer. We recognize the drug may work differently for everyone who takes it and may not work for some individuals. Therefore, we encourage people who are interested in learning more about this treatment for themselves or a loved one to please talk to your doctor or clinician. All right, so let's review the types of the types of treatments currently on the market and why this new treatment option is different. And you saw this slide with Caitlin's presentation. I'm just going to go a little bit further in depth. Until now, the only treatments available help some symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. However, they do not treat the underlying cause of the disease. Because each person experiences Alzheimer's differently, these treatments work in varying degrees and are not necessarily effective for everyone. The treatments for symptoms of Alzheimer's disease include, and you can see them there on your screen. I'm not going to try to pronounce them all. I will just kind of go through the general name. So we've got Aricept in 1996, and then in 2000, Exelon, 2001, Razidine, 2003, Namenda, and in 2014, Namzaric. And you may have already heard of these since these have been on the market, some of them for well over 20 years. I'll provide a more in-depth overview of Aduhelm, the newest therapy in Alzheimer's treatments, in just a few minutes. First, let's talk about what we know about the hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's is a complex disease and the exact causes aren't fully understood. However, researchers believe there isn't a single cause of Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's research is targeting many potential causes of the disease, including two hallmarks of the disease. So one of the hallmarks is tau neurofibrillary tangles, and the second hallmark is beta amyloid protein plaques. As far as tau protein, this helps keep the brain cell healthy and allows for nutrients and other essential supplies to move throughout cells. In some people, the tau becomes twisted, causing tangles that build up inside the cells. In areas where tangles are forming, nutrients and other essential supplies can no longer move through the cells, causing these cells to eventually die. Researchers are studying the second hallmark, beta amyloid, and the role of amyloid plaques on Alzheimer's dementia. Beta amyloid is a protein that is naturally produced in the brain, but that scientists think something abnormal is happening with amyloid in the brains of people living with Alzheimer's. When pieces of beta amyloid clump together, amyloid plaques form. Many researchers believe that these small clumps of beta amyloid may contribute to the cell death and tissue loss observed in the brains of individuals with Alzheimer's disease. Ultimately, the brain cells are destroyed, eventually impacting a person's ability to function. Aducanumab, also referred to as Aduhelm, was granted accelerated approval by the FDA on June 7th, 2021. This is the first treatment that addresses the underlying biology of Alzheimer's disease. Aducanumab targets and reduces amyloid plaques in the brains of individuals with Alzheimer's, which is reasonably likely to lead to a reduction in the clinical decline due to Alzheimer's disease. The treatment is appropriate for people with evidence of a buildup of amyloid plaques in the brain and mild cognitive impairment due to Alzheimer's disease, or people living with mild or early Alzheimer's dementia. This new treatment is pivotal, while not a cure. This is the first of a number of new treatments to come. According to the FDA, this reduction in amyloid plaques, one of the hallmarks found in the brains of individuals with Alzheimer's, is reasonably likely to lead to a reduction in clinical decline. So for example, memory and thinking due to Alzheimer's disease. Also functional decline, for example, activities of daily life, cooking, cleaning, doing laundry, etc. This could mean more time for individuals to actively participate in daily life, have sustained independence, and hold on to memories longer. An individual's response to aducanumab may vary. Therefore, we encourage people who are interested in learning more about this treatment, either for themselves or for a loved one, to have a conversation with your healthcare provider. Okay, now while all drugs have side effects in clinical trials, the most common serious side effects were amyloid-related imaging abnormalities, also referred to as Ariya, headaches, and falls. Let's talk a little bit about Ariya. Ariya is a common but manageable side effect that does not usually cause any symptoms, but can be serious. It is typically a temporary swelling in areas of the brain that usually resolve over time. Some people may also have small spots of bleeding in or on the surface of the brain. Patients should be monitored for Ariya before and during treatment with MRI scans. It is important to have a conversation with your doctor to learn about potential side effects and make an informed decision to determine if this treatment is an option for you or a loved one. Okay, Aduhelm is administered intravenously through an IV infusion every 4 weeks. Each treatment is expected to last 45 to 60 minutes. While we do not yet have information on specific locations, in general, infusions can be done at hospitals or infusion therapy centers. It is unclear how many doses any individual will need to take over the course of their treatment. The clinical trial tested this drug over the course of 18 months, and many have been treated for years. As part of the treatment and monitoring for side effects, MRI scans are required by the FDA prior to initiating treatment and prior to the 7th and 12th treatment infusions. The FDA specified the treatment should be initiated with individuals in the Alzheimer's disease stage studied in the clinical trials. So people with mild cognitive impairment, MCI, or mild or early Alzheimer's dementia, and have evidence of a buildup of amyloid plaques in the brain. The FDA is not directly requiring any specific diagnostic test. However, the label says the treatment is indicated for the treatment of Alzheimer's disease based on reduction in amyloid beta plaques in patients with mild cognitive impairment or mild dementia stages of disease. This means that a physician should confirm the presence of amyloid plaques in the brain before prescribing this anti-amyloid plaque treatment. Tests like cerebral spinal fluid analysis or amyloid PET imaging should be a part of the diagnostic process to determine eligibility for this treatment. The therapy has not yet been tested on people with more advanced cases of Alzheimer's dementia or Alzheimer's disease without clinical symptoms. Now that the treatment is approved, nationwide distribution and implementation will take some time. If you have a diagnosis of MCI due to Alzheimer's or mild early Alzheimer's dementia, Talk to your doctor to determine if you are a candidate for the treatment or to discuss all treatment options. Your primary healthcare physician may not be able to prescribe the treatment. He or she can provide a preliminary assessment and may refer you to a specialist to determine if it is an appropriate treatment for you. To ensure access, we are calling on CMS to expand the availability of dementia care services under Medicare. The Alzheimer's Association has elevated the conversation about Alzheimer's and other dementia through education and public awareness campaigns focused on early symptoms of cognitive decline and the importance of an early and accurate diagnosis. With the accelerated approval of aducanumab, early detection and diagnosis is even more critical to ensure individuals with the disease can talk to their doctor about this new treatment and if you or your loved one is a candidate for this treatment. If you do not have a diagnosis, learn about the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's disease by visiting alz.org, take our online education program at alz.org/education, or you can call our 24/7 helpline that Caitlin already discussed at 1-800-272-3900. It's also important to see your doctor and share your concerns about memory changes. Get a diagnosis. You may be referred to a specialist to determine appropriate treatment. Early diagnosis can also allow caregivers and the person living with the disease to better manage medications, build a care team, receive counseling and other support services, create advanced directives, and address driving and other safety concerns. Okay, talking about cost of treatment. At this time, we do not know what insurance coverage will be for aducanumab or how Medicare will cover this treatment. We do know that the Alzheimer's Association will do everything in its power to ensure access to the drug, any tests needed during the treatment process, and other associated costs, including any diagnostic costs. We know this drug will be of great interest to many, but it is not the only important element of Alzheimer's treatment and care. If you or a loved one is experiencing memory changes, the Alzheimer's Association strongly encourages speaking with a doctor for a thorough evaluation, diagnosis, and to discuss treatment options. Again, reach out to our 24/7 hotline at 800-272-3900, or you can visit Alzheimer's Association at alz.org. We also have a variety of resources, including education programs, kind of like this one, offered in person, virtually, and online. Some topics include 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's, understanding Alzheimer's and dementia, and much more. You can visit alz.org/CRF to find a program offering in your area. As the world's largest nonprofit funder of Alzheimer's disease research, we understand the enormous significance of this approval and also the need to continue to advance potential treatment avenues for diverse populations living in all stages of Alzheimer's and other dementia. We are hopeful that this is just the beginning, both for this drug and for better treatments for Alzheimer's. Without the first approved treatment, there cannot be a second or third or fourth, each improving on the earlier treatments. This new drug approval and sustained progress in the research field is due in large part to years of investment, unrelenting dedication, and our vision of a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia. Okay, and so now we have some time. Yep, great. We have about 11 minutes for questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see everyone. And then Carol, maybe we can address some of the questions in the chat.
Sure. Yeah, I'm scrolling back up to the top to look at the questions that we've had. And this one is from Marie. It refers to a chart that was, or a graphic that was toward the beginning of Caitlin's presentation. Marie asks, how long does it take to get from beginning to end of the chart? In other words, the progression from no cognitive impairment to Alzheimer's dementia.
Yeah, great question. So it really varies from person to person. I think that's really important to note that everyone is unique and, has different lifestyle factors that impact the progression and may have other diseases that have have some play into their progression, but on average, after diagnosis, somebody who's received a diagnosis will live 4 to 8 years, but it's possible that people can live up to 20 years, if not longer, with the disease. So again, lots of contributing pieces that play into, how, also when somebody is diagnosed, is somebody diagnosed early on in the disease process, or did they get the diagnosis towards the later stages? Those are all factors that play into how long somebody lives with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia.
All right. And again, Caitlin, this question is from Marie, and you kind of alluded to this in your last answer. She asks, does age change how fast the disease progresses? Also, does having other medical problems or conditions cause the disease to progress faster?
Yeah, that definitely does tie in quite well to what I just spoke about. So we know that age is the number one risk factor that when somebody is diagnosed depends on how early on they catch the disease and are involved in planning for the future, and maybe getting on medication to help with some of the symptoms. Or now we also, like Kelly shared, have Aduhelm or aducanumab specifically for people with mild cognitive impairment or early stage Alzheimer's. So yes, really, when they are diagnosed depends more on how long they will live with the disease. So it's not so much how old they are, but I've talked about in my presentation that we believe that there are biological changes happening in the brain 10 to 20 years before the symptoms occur. So the sooner that somebody can get a diagnosis and have their concerns addressed, the sooner that they can, get to the bottom of, is it Alzheimer's or another type of dementia? Is it something that's reversible that's going on, like maybe a drug interaction or severe vitamin deficiency? There are other things that kind of mimic dementia. So getting those, tests done and questions answered as soon as possible, will help them live a higher quality of life. And then, yes, definitely, we know that there are contributing factors from other diseases, especially things relating to heart disease and diabetes and all of those pieces that can cause someone's progression to be more quickly progressing because of those other health concerns. So
Caitlin, this is Marie. My final question on that is that, have they diagnosed that this is a hereditary disease? Because I know years ago when they didn't have a term, they would call it senility, or things like this. And so you would say, oh, my grandmother was senile, so I'm going to, it's possible I would have it. So I'm just wondering, have they really said that this is something that is carried on generationally if it was in the family history?
Yeah, so there are different types of genes that can impact somebody's likelihood of developing Alzheimer's. So there are risk genes that mean that somebody has the potential to develop the disease, and they may have a parent or sibling, that an immediate family member that has had Alzheimer's, and so they know that they may be more predisposed to developing dementia down the road. But then there's also deterministic genes, which mean that basically everyone in the family has it. This is really rare. About 1% of people living with Alzheimer's have a deterministic gene, but there's some really interesting research that we didn't have a chance to cover today, looking into familial Alzheimer's disease. And so, and then also the term senility is definitely something that it used to be very common. I feel like a lot of people would use that for old age and memory changes even. And we know now that Alzheimer's and dementia are, progressive and fatal brain disease is very different than the age-related changes everyone experiences to their cognition. So, yes, I hope that answers your questions.
All right, there is another question in the chat box. Lisa asks, is there any evidence about reducing Alzheimer's diagnosis or symptoms when on a plant-based diet, such as reducing plaque or inflammation in the brain?
Another really wonderful question. I love everything that everyone's thinking of. So I know we kind of covered some of the lifestyle interventions and things that we can do. We didn't talk a whole lot about diet, but we know that diet and exercise can definitely help, reduce our risk. We can't say prevent yet, but I know that we've got the US Pointer study and a number of other research trials that are going on today to look at what we can do to reduce our risk and hopefully someday be able to say these are the things that we can do to prevent the disease. But we know that eating a healthy diet that's good for both your body is also good for your body and your brain. So something that's low in saturated fats. There's limited research on this, so we still need to do more, but a couple of the diets that have been found to have a positive effect on reducing heart disease may also help reduce dementia risk. So those two diets that we kind of talk about are the dietary approaches to stop hypertension, or DASH diet, and the Mediterranean diet. So, eating healthy fruits and vegetables and whole foods, nuts and grains, trying to replace saturated fats with healthier fats, limiting meat intake. And yeah, I think that those are a few suggestions that we have. We actually have a whole section on our website too that that talks about adapting a healthy diet. So if you haven't checked that out already.
All right, thank you so much. There is, a new message just came in, just a moment. Okay. Marie, all right. Marie is asking, how long does it take to get from beginning? Oh, never mind. No, that's okay. Let me scroll down to the bottom. Marie again. Does a brain injury at an older age cause dementia to occur or progress?
Yeah, so we know that, protecting the brain is what we can do. One of the best things that we can do to reduce our risk of developing dementia. So wearing your helmet and your seat belts. There are some links from traumatic brain injury, and especially repeated traumatic brain injury, that increases someone's risk. So the best suggestion there is to do what we can to prevent traumatic brain injury, and then yes, just knowing that there are studies that are happening and that the risk is increased. I'm trying to recall the exact number, but we know that somebody who has had traumatic brain injury or repeated traumatic brain injury is at an increased risk of developing Alzheimer's.
All right. If there are no more questions, I want to thank Kelly and Caitlin for presenting such relevant, up-to-date information. And I do have a question to ask. The resources that you mentioned, will they be on the handouts that are emailed to us later today?
Absolutely. I will make sure to get that sent along so everyone can check out all the links that we talked about and the helpline and the apps that were mentioned. So we'll definitely pass those along.
All right. Then I want to remind everyone that this session has been recorded. If you want to see this session, view it again, because so much great information was presented. If you'll go to the top of your chat box, you'll see that I give you the directions for going to YouTube, typing in or searching NKA Idaho, and that will take you to this session that has been recorded. It'll be probably put on YouTube later today. And then also other sessions that have been recorded, you can access those. Okay. As A reminder for everyone, we have a lot of great classes that are provided through NKA. So I would like to mention the classes that are coming up next week. On Tuesday, the 12th, we have a gentle yoga class, and that combines pranayama or breathing exercises with some stretching and balance poses. On the 13th, we have the first meeting of a book club, and that is on the book, Being Mortal, Medicine and What Happens in the End by Atul Gawande. Then on Thursday, the 14th, we have a class called Do You Really Know the Medications You're Taking? And the last class that's coming up next week is another health-related class on Thursday, the 14th, The Interconnected Human Body. And that is an anatomist from Skaggs Treasure Valley Anatomy and Physiology Laboratory from ISU Meridian. To register for those classes, if you'll look at your chat box, I just put in the link for CVent to register for any additional classes. Once again, let's thank Caitlin and Kelly for this excellent presentation. I believe that is it. So everyone have a very pleasant rest of your Wednesday, and we hope to see you at additional NKA classes. To leave the session, go to the lower right-hand corner and click on Leave.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, presenters. And make sure we have your zip code so we can send you those sheets in regards to the survey that's going to be done. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Thank you all. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.